Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges as he explores turning the page on his life and yours. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, Paul. Our guest today, Dennis J. Henson, is a successful real estate investor, teacher, and author with over 50 years' experience. His mentoring program has greatly contributed to the success of many of his followers. And because of that, Dennis has written a new book titled Real Impact, Daily Inspiration. And I'm very impressed with the way it's written, the content, the structure. It's a wonderful book. Once, during an interview, Dennis was asked, if you had to name the one thing that's had the greatest impact on your students, what would that be? He thought for just a second and responded with, form the habit of reading the right things every day. When it comes to the value of daily habits, Dennis and I swim in similar ponds. In fact, Dennis has a quote that I just adore. All of your dreams are possible as a byproduct of the habits you form today. With that, let's bring on our special guest coming to us from Arlington, Texas, the home of the 2023 World Series champions that my son played with. Dennis Henson. I keep wanting to call you Henderson. Dennis Henson, welcome.
Thank you very much, Charlie.
So how's everything in Arlington?
It's great. Yeah, it's nice and cool. It's been really hot for the last few weeks, but today it's very comfortable.
Oh, that's wonderful. Dennis, as I'm sure you are aware more than most, is that most people in the United States basically don't read unless it is bite-sized. It seems to me that you have organized your book in such a way that doesn't require hours of sitting down to a good book. I think the structure of your book, Real Impact, Daily Inspiration, tells a lot about your objectives in the book. Really nice job. Talk to me about your objectives and your strategic effort of the way you structured your book.
Like you said, someone asked me in a podcast, could you give our guests one thing that made your students become so successful? And I thought, and I said, I haven't changed their habits. They said, habit is the best one. And I said, have them form the habit of reading something positive every day, helps them reach their goal, whatever their goal is. A student's goal was real estate, but if you want to become a doctor, you read something about medicine. If you want to become an attorney, you read law. And after that podcast, I was thinking, that was a great question. I really think I hit a home run with that answer. I really think that's right one. And I did a little research, and a few other people asked a similar question. Super famous, super successful people basically said the same thing. Oh, it's education. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if there were some kind of a tool that I could give my students, like an app or a book or something? And then it hit me. I thought, I've been collecting these motivational stories and quotes and poems and books for 50 years, actually since 1975, so it's 49 years. And I thought, if I put those in an order so that it goes from the largest to the smallest, people could fit that into their daily schedule. So if they got home, it's hard to form a habit, the busy schedule. If they got home at night and they were just exhausted and they thought, I forgot to read today, you can grab the book and read a quote, 2 quotes. And they're very powerful quotes. They'll go to sleep thinking about something that will move them forward, and they'll keep their habit going. If they have a 3-hour layover at the airport, they can go to the back of the book and have about 100 books there in priority order, from the best. They're all good, so from the best to the least best. Read in that book. So if someone reads the books that I put in the back there, I had a reviewer on Amazon. He gave me an extra star because of the list of books. So he said, wow, the power, and it is a very powerful list of books. If you read all those books, it's life changing. It really would change your life. I thought, this is going to take me 3 months to do, because I have everything that I need. I have all the stories and quotes. I can just sit down and put them together. In 3 months, I'll put this book out. 5 years later.
Yeah, I get that. I'm a writer. I get that.
Oh, it has my heart and soul in it. It's stories and quotes and poems that I liked so much that I captured them before there was computers, which meant I had to actually go somewhere and find a pen and piece of paper and sit down and write it and save it. And I did that for years and years. And the same way with the books.
You hand wrote those stories?
I made notes.
Okay.
Me with Jim Rohn, he kept everything in a little book. He kept a little book with him, and he hand wrote all of his ideas. I basically did the same thing.
Okay.
I met Jim Rohn back in the 70s. He probably was instrumental in giving me the idea of jotting things down and saving them. So anyway, once I decided to do it, realized I had a lot more stories and poems and quotes than would fit in one book. The difficult part was narrowing them down and just keeping the very best ones. But it even made the book better. One of the tests of whether it went in or not was, how much of an impact does it have when you read it? If you read it and it's just good and you think, oh, that's nice, then it didn't go in the book. But if you read it and it reached in your soul and plucked your heartstring, then it went into the book. Oh, and when it was all done, probably had read the stories at least 1,000 times. And I still cry when I read them. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Well, they're pretty powerful stories.
Yeah, I read one on Abraham Lincoln. I was very impressed with the depth of the detail of Lincoln's life and things that I had no idea. I read his book, Lincoln's Melancholy, and it just did not go into his early childhood. And that little short story, or that little piece that you wrote, really explained a lot, gave me such insight into the person and the character of Abraham Lincoln. I loved it. It was just so well written and so informative. That was very nice.
Thank you. That story has a backstory, because what I remembered about Lincoln was that he had failed and failed. That's one had told me he'd failed 16 times, and that's really all I knew when I started to write the book. And I did some research. I came up with about 3 pages of his failures. I thought, oh, that's amazing. Failed all those times and still became the president and still was a great orator. And so I had written on my daily list, remove the Lincoln story from the book. And then I thought, let me just do a little bit more research. Maybe I can find something that would keep it in there. So I did. I found something, and then I found something else, then something else. Each one of these things, you read the story, any one of these things would have derailed him.
Yeah.
We would know the name Lincoln today. Any one of those 20 things might happen in exactly the order. And the chances of those happening, it took a miracle.
Yeah, it's almost, as I was reading that, it's almost as if you were talking about, is it providence or luck? And that's the question. But it's almost as if Lincoln's presidency was a divine appointment. It just took, he nurtured his talent. He discovered his own talent. He had a passion, and he discovered maybe not his talent, his passion, and he just fed into his passion by working on his talent, and he became a great orator, great thinker. I had no idea he was such a hugely successful private attorney. And then all of the situations, all of the circumstances that had to be overcome for him to get to the office were amazing. It was a brilliant job. But so the book is filled with stories like that, but then there's filled with poignant quotes that are important. I'm a man of ritual myself, ritual and habits and routines. And I have a ritual every morning where I read something inspirational, I meditate for 20 minutes, and then I journal. And do you know, Dennis, what I journal on is always a quote. I could read you my journals. There's a quote, and then I don't journal about what I did today or yesterday or what I'm thinking. I typically will write thoughts on a quote, and I'll write 200 to 500 words on that quote. And because I think in that language, as do you, I really agree that a powerful quote can move our lives.
So those quotes in that book did move my life. They rescued me when I was down and gave me the strength to get up and fight again many times, and that's why I saved them. And as you read those, you'll understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I agree. They're wonderful. They're incredible. After reading in your book, and we got a chance to chat briefly before the show, Dennis, it seems to me that you're a man on a mission, that you've got something you want to accomplish. Would you agree that you're a man on a mission?
Yes, I do. I think there's several places in the book where something happened and the people felt like they were actually jarred. They were hit by a bolt of lightning. That happened to Walt Disney. He was in a train and the train jolted and it changed his life. One little thing changed his life. That's what happened to me when I decided to write this book. It was like was hit by something. Oh, wow, this is what you should do. So I spent the next 5 years working 6 days a week putting this together. And I guess if that's my mission. Now, every time I finished one part, the next part came and it was harder, and the next part was harder. So you have to have a lot of, persistence, the seventh of the 7 secrets, to complete a book, because there's so many obstacles. Then the final obstacle is to get the book out in front of people. And they're competing with millions and millions of other books. So I've got a difficult mission, but it's fun. And you get to meet nice people like you.
How would you define your mission? What would you say in a couple of sentences is your mission for your mission? That this book contributes to your mission, but you've got a mission greater than the book. And what is that?
It's to improve the quality of people's lives through continuing education or through helping them understand that there's a law of nature, which is really what the book's all about. The book's kind of a combination of Think and Grow Rich and Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
Kind of between Chicken Soup for the Soul and Think and Grow Rich. I don't know that Chicken Soup changed many people's lives. Maybe it did, but the story about how it came about changed the author's lives. And of course, you can go rich. There's an unlimited number. If you wanted to just search, you could find thousands, tens of thousands of people that say, I read that book and it changed my life, and I'm one of those. So when I started writing the book, I thought, I had just read Mendino's book, Greatest Salesman in the World, probably for the 50th time, because it has the habits in the back. And one of the habits that I really embrace, your habits will change your life. I will form good habits and become their slave. That's the one. And I thought, well, what if I could get a lot of people form good habits and become their slave? It would change the world. So the purpose of the book is not to make money, but it's to change a lot of people's lives for the better, make them more successful. And whatever it is, it doesn't have to be success in making money. It can be successful in finding someone to love, or success in doing a project that they always wanted to do, building a bridge. It could be anything. By reading the book and putting that habit in place will give them a much shorter space between here where they want to go.
I live in the world of habits. As a matter of fact, what was it, Paul? Maybe 3 months ago, we did a show on habits, another one that was on habits, and it was about a widespread range of habits. You have one particular habit that there's several. I'm sure you have several habits that are success habits, but the one that you talk about and that you write about is that form the habit of reading the right things every day. Your book helps people by giving them a guide, a lens into what might be those right things to read. Because how do you find the right things to read? This is you've got a hack, you've got a shortcut into it. Rather than having to read long books and find the quotes, you give stories, you give books, and you talk about the quotes that will come from those. Tell us, what might a process of daily reading, what might that look like? What practically, is that a 5-minute thing? Is it a morning thing? Is it an evening thing? Is it an hour thing? What is there any kind of limits or structure around it, or is it wide open?
No, it's not the quantity of reading or the time that you read. It's quality in the habits. So if you get up early and you have to get to an appointment, you don't have time to read, you're busy all day, you're exhausted when you get home, you sit down and you just relax for a minute and it's time to go to bed, you remember, I didn't read anything. Then you can read quotes and you've kept your habit going. If you have 30 minutes between appointments, you've got your books with you, you can say, I'll read a short story. So it's not, the timing is not important. It's just, it has to be done between the time you get up in the morning and the time you go to sleep at night to keep the habit going. Now, once forming a habit's not easy. Forming a new habit, your whole inertia that's inside you ejects a new habit. We're going in the direction we want to. That's what your subconscious is saying. Everything's fine. We're moving in the direction we need to. We don't need to change anything. And somebody brings something new and says, this will be better for you. Then your subconscious says, no, that's new and different. Let's keep going in the direction we're going. That's why habits are hard to form. With this book, the stories are interesting. So it's easy to come back to them because, it was good. I can't wait till tomorrow to get to the next one. Then if you have 5 minutes, then you read a poem or 2 poems. So whatever time slot you have during a busy day, you can still fit your reading in and continue your habit. After you've done that for a year or 2 years, it's no longer a problem. You're already moving in that direction. Your subconscious is saying, I have to read today. Can't miss it. I walk every day. I have to have so many steps. When I first started that, kind of dreaded it, I have to walk. And I had to push myself. After doing it for 5 years, I went to bed and hadn't walked all my steps, probably wouldn't be able to sleep. I have to get up and go do it because the habit is so ingrained.
Yeah.
If you can ingrain wonderful habits that move you in a great direction, that changes your life.
Yeah, I so agree. I'm understanding the 5-year writing a book is all this. This is going to take me 3 years, but I'm writing a book about becoming the person you can be. I'm a big advocate of becoming. That's why I was so much loving your quote. All your dreams are possible as a byproduct of the habits you form today. And once again, I believe that we are always, no matter our age, I'm 75, and I'm always in the process of becoming, no matter my age. I'm becoming something else. I'm building on what I am. And so as we can have, and we have say in the process by forming the kind of habits that support that. You've talked to me about practicing successful habits. Are there any other habits that successful people do apart from reading
Yeah, there's so many of them I couldn't begin to mention them all. But the underlying theme of the book, I live in Dallas, and I live in Arlington, which is DFW area. So it's DFWA.
Yeah, I spent a whole bunch of time last year in Arlington. We did the World Series championship parade around the city, and we're in the trucks, and everybody's screaming at my son. So Arlington's a favorite place for me. There was like 500,000 people there.
Yeah, an exciting time, and congratulations.
Thank you.
The way I remember the underlying theme as I was writing the book is, first one, the D stands for desire. If you ever read the book, You Can Grow Rich, the entire book, he's talking about this thing. He never comes out and says, this is the thing. But he says, all of these successful people had this thing, and if you read it, you'll get it. But some people don't get it. Now, I'm about to tell you what it is. The underlying theme for Think and Grow Rich is a burning desire. The first step to success is to get your mind right, and the first step to getting your mind right is having a burning desire. If you want to become a nurse, have a burning desire, you can become a nurse. Nothing can stop you, only yourself. You fall down and get knocked down and get turned down or whatever. If you don't get up, you'll fail. But if you continue to get up because you have that burning desire. Next one is faith. You have to believe what you're doing to become successful. Like Henry Ford said, if a fellow believes he can do something, he's probably right. If a fellow believes he can't do something, he's probably right. I can tell you, he is right, because he can move mountains. There's just no way to explain how powerful it is. The W is willpower. You have the will.
Just 1 second. You're talking about D's and W's. Can you tell our audience what that is about?
It's DFW.
Oh, DFW for the airport. I missed that. I'm sorry. Got it.
D is for desire. F is for faith. W is for will. And if you have the will, nothing can stop you. Every time you get knocked down, you just get up and dust your pants off. It doesn't matter what happens to you. You have a strong enough will, you're going to continue. And then the A stands for action. So if you can form those habits, then you're unstoppable. You can have whatever you want, go wherever you want, do whatever you want. And there's just, you're just unstoppable. It's a law. It's a law of nature. It's like gravity or inertia. So you can't change that. If you get in the way of someone who is that way, they will run over you, because they have all of eternity, all of nature, everything. The universe is behind them and pushing them towards success. You can get off track. You can let your will die down or lose faith or whatever. That's when you fail. So I used to teach real estate. I had real estate groups, and I taught real estate, and I brought a lot of people in, and they spoke, and they sold these real estate courses. And some people would come back to me and say, that real estate course didn't work. And I'd ask them 3 questions. How many offers did you make? How far did you get? And he didn't do it. Of course, it didn't work. Most of the real estate courses that people write, they spend years putting them together. really good. It's the same way with anything else. I just familiar with real estate.
Sure.
There's plenty of education. That's Walt Disney said. There's always somebody out there that's willing to help you. You can find out anything you need to know. You just have to be willing to go out and ask people until you find the right person.
Do you know there's lots of truth to that? There is looking to people who are experienced in a field. I don't want to say experts because I'm not really tickled with that term, but there are people experienced in a field of which anytime I'm trying something new or different, or even something that's an old tradition for me, I love speaking to other people about it, getting perspective, getting insight. What have they done that's worked? What have they seen that doesn't work? If we try to live in our own cocoon and do this all by ourselves, it's not going to happen.
No, that's one of the 7 secrets of success is form great alliances. You cannot do it. You might. Your chances improve tremendously bringing in other people. I always tell my students, try not to do any of this stuff yourself. Find somebody that's better and faster and cheaper and get them to do it. Then all you got to do is just manage them. So that's one of the reasons they're successful also. I learned that in college when I was the drum major of the Marching Southerners in Alabama, Jacksonville State University. The band director rarely even attended the marching band rehearsals. He wrote shows, he wrote the music, then he had his section leaders and drum major put on the show and the music. He didn't even have to come. Went back years after I graduated, and he said, let's go get a cup of coffee. And I said, the band's practicing. You got to be there. He said, no, they'll take care of it.
Yeah.
So I learned at a young age that delegation is extremely important. And there's always somebody that can do it better than you, faster than you, and a lot cheaper than you.
When I was coaching my son's baseball team, youth baseball team, we had a travel team that was and we went from 8 and under to 12 and under. And as the kids got about, and my teams we won 7 state championships, won 1 national championship, and were acclaimed best team in the country as a 12-year-old. And no, I think that was 11 years old that we were proclaimed the best team in the country. But you know what we did, Dennis, is that the other coach and myself, we determined that we taught 2 players that were outstanding players, but good communicators. They led before we'd go to a tournament, and then you would practice. You were allotted about an hour practice time on the field or off the field, or maybe in the outfield. And we would do warm-ups, calisthenics, and all of that. 2 players led all of that. We just sat in the stands drinking soda pops. And people come and say, why aren't you out there with this team? I said, we don't have to be. We got these players know exactly what to do. They're team leaders, and it's a team that all wants to work together. So we had everybody set up and convinced that they had it within themselves to run this thing. And there's power in that, man. There's lots of power in that.
And what you taught them, the life lesson that they can use for the rest of their lives, if they just realize it and apply it to what they're doing.
If I told you my son's salary, which is all dependent on his ability to communicate as a team leader, it's all what he learned during that formation period of his life. He learned to be a leader, and he learned to be a leader that cares about the results of the team, not the results of the individual. And we had one time when he was 14 years old, we were going to a tournament that was called the Junior Olympics, and we were with a team that I was a coach of. I didn't manage this team, but my son had, at this time he was 14, had what was called a dead arm because he pitched and his arm was just stiff, so we didn't want to throw him. The coach asked if he would go from California to Arizona, go from L.A. area to Phoenix, Arizona, and if he would just sit in the dugout and support the team, because they said he was such a team leader that he had impact on the way the whole team would go. That's what he did with he did that with the Rangers, and he did that with the Cleveland Guardians this year. And all of that he learned as a discipline as an under 12-year-old.
It's amazing. It can happen. You change the course of your life by doing just simple things. If you are sending a rocket ship to the moon and you're off 1 degree, well, you're going to miss the moon by 100,000 miles. Life's the same way. You can just change the course of your life 1 degree. It can make a tremendous difference in where you end.
One thing we talked about is where I really wanted to cover this subject before we close, but there's something that you told me that is so simple, but it's so fundamentally true. And that was in one of your statements. It talked about that this book, one of the things that your personal goal and that this book will help is the problem of being the imposter syndrome. And that is something I faced in my career because I was coaching CEOs of billion-dollar companies, and I didn't have the resume that covered that. And yet all of my business was referral. I did no marketing, so I had to do something right. But I always had this feeling because I've not had that position, am I qualified? And then that was when you brought up this great idea that you have, is that whatever you believe about yourself, you will become. I believed I could do it no matter what. But if you have this belief, and you told me these great words, Dennis, that if you don't feel adequate, then get adequate. That's so simple, but it's true. If you don't feel adequate, then do something about it. Don't whine about it. Don't quit, but just make yourself adequate. Read more, study more, learn more, listen to more people. Do those habits that you're talking about.
First of the 7 secrets of success is to get your mind right. So whatever is bothering you or whatever is in your way, you have to look over the fence. Well, a lot of people will come to an obstacle and they'll stop and they'll say, oh, there's an obstacle. I have to stop. No, that's not how it works. Look past that. Always going to where you're going. Obstacles are just stepping stones, just ways to learn from mistakes. I think one of the quotes in the book is, embrace mistakes because they're the best teacher.
Yeah. I talk a lot about making failure your friend and befriending your failure. As we come to wrap up, I have a final off-the-wall question. We've not even talked about this subject, but I'm just wondering if there's any relationship. Do you see any relationship in what you're teaching about successful habits and personal spirituality?
Yes, absolutely. This book, I purposely wrote this book without bringing in spirituality or politics, and I brought in a little bit of football. I wanted the book to relate to a lot of people, so one little thing like that wouldn't cause them not to want to do what the book wants them to do. So I'm writing Real Impact Book 2, which has a lot of the stories I didn't put in Book 1, but I found some new ones that are even better. So Book 2, I think, is going to be as good or maybe even better than Book 1. Real Impact Book 3, there were stories in there, grew up Southern Baptist, stories in there that have to do with miracles that have happened in people's lives, people that you recognize. So I'm putting those in Real Impact 3 because I think a 3 is a spiritual number. And
Trinity.
Yes, the Trinity. And those stories will really grab you and tear your heart apart. It'll really make you think. But those are all in the 3rd book, and that's going to be, it's not going to be next week when it comes.
Yeah, it'll be a couple years for that one. Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
I'll tell you what, Dennis, it's been great having you on the show. I love your idea, and I know it will resonate with our listeners, that it's a habit of reading, just even reading quotes and pondering different ideas, motivational ideas, spiritual ideas about life. I think it's wonderful. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today.
I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it very much. Oh, and I have a gift for your listeners, if it's okay.
Sure.
If they will go to dennisjhenson.life, I-F-E.
Oh, that's the link. I had another link, and I couldn't get that link. So it's dennisjhenson.life.
I-F-E. And they scroll all the way to the bottom. I hope they look at what's on the site, but they scroll all the way to the bottom. There's a white little bar there that says podcast attendees. If they click on that, you can download the ebook for free.
DennisJHenson.life. Yeah, that's my URL. It's the nextchapter.life. I use that same URL. So I will make sure that's on our show notes. I've got show notes to your book on Amazon, and I'll get that on our show notes as well. Thank you so much. It's been a blast.
Oh, thank you. I hope you'll have me again someday.
Okay. And I also want to thank our listeners for tuning in to the Next Chapter with Charlie. And until next, this is Charlie Hedges signing off. Bye for now.